Hey Slingers, thanks for tuning in for another Wordslinger podcast, and this week I'm talking to somebody I truly admire. I'm talking to Mike Wendland and a little later his wife Jennifer. They're the hosts of the Road Trekking RV podcast, so you're going to want to stick around. I'll see you in just a moment. This episode of the Wordslinger podcast is brought to you by Draft to Digital. Convert your manuscript, distribute it online, and get support the whole way at drafttodigital.com.
It's the Wordslinger podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. I am Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger. I don't make any bones about that. Now, I'm glad you're here because this week I'm talking to Mike and a little later his wife Jennifer Wendland. Jennifer dropped in toward the end of the interview. If you don't know who they are, Mike and Jennifer Wendland run they actually produce the Road Trekking RV Lifestyle podcast. I think I've got the name right now. I tend to get it wrong. But they're the hosts of that show. Now, I started listening to that podcast way back when Kara and I decided we were going to sell our home, buy an RV, and live in it full time. We did that for a little over a year, really. It was a great experience. Kara, I think, was ultimately decided she didn't particularly care for being in it full time. She likes to have space. She likes to have an office space. She likes to have tables. So I think I could have kept going, honestly. I really enjoyed the whole experience of being on the road. Being able to take a road trip, pull off somewhere. You've got a bathroom with you. You've got a kitchen with you. A full kitchen, by the way. We could do anything we wanted. Pull something out of the fridge. Pull something out of the freezer. I had an ice maker. I could prepare a meal on the road. I got a microwave, a convection oven. I got a gas stovetop, full sink, full bathroom, full shower, full size bed. I mean, I had it all. Honestly, I think it would be a bachelor's paradise. I mean, if we're just being honest, if I were single, I'd probably still be living in the RV. It's probably good I still own it because every now and then I think I take Kara off enough that she would throw me out and probably make me live in the thing. So, there's a lot going on. I didn't get a chance to tell you this in the last podcast. Now, there's a new format. If you're watching on YouTube, you're seeing a brand new format. In fact, if you're watching on YouTube, it probably looks a great deal different because as of today, I've changed even the way I handle the recording. I've got a different camera. Went out and got a camera and stand that I could, elevate things a little. Got a slightly different lighting setup. We'll see how this works out. I'm going to tinker. I'm going to continue to play around with this, see what I can work out, if I can make it look better over time. But it's all part of that iterative process. But what I didn't get to tell you last week, because it didn't happen until after, but I did all this streamlining, and my estimate was I want to get the show down to something I can produce both audio and video within 1 hour. That didn't happen. I had the show was essentially produced, but I ran into some technical difficulties, and it took me basically 3 solid days to actually produce the show. Now, that shouldn't happen again. We'll see. I've already had a few glitches and technical difficulties this morning, but it's because I keep changing things. It's because I'm changing the way I do it and the configuration here. So some of that's to be expected. But it took me 3 days, mostly because of Dropbox. I use smart syncing on Dropbox, which is a feature you can get if you pay for a pro account. And I use that, and what it does is it makes your files look and seem and generally behave as if they're on your hard drive, but they're really being stored in the cloud, and they get downloaded selectively. And that helps free up hard drive space. And that's That's important because you want to, if you have more hard drive space, your machine generally will run better. It has larger cache and it doesn't get bogged down as easy. So to keep the system running nice and smooth and clean, I do that. Now, I thought it was smart. I still think it's smart, but I didn't account for the fact that some of my software, like Final Cut Pro, depends on reloading those video clips. Even though you may have deleted a project, it tries to reload the previous video clips, which were not on the hard drive and were rather large. And so it had to re-download them, which made Final Cut keep crashing every time I opened it. Little things like that. So anyway, that's the woes of the Wordslinger podcast, but we got that fixed. We're good to go now. Anyway, I'm hoping this one goes a lot smoother. I'm still curious. What do you think of the new format? How are you liking it? Is it working for you? I didn't change anything so dramatically. I mean, I most of the changes are kind of invisible. They're on my end. But you know, does the flavor of the show, has it changed a little? Do you like the ad spots? Sonata and Scribe, by the way, that's a Nick Thackeray joint. I just interviewed him yesterday about that service. I don't know when that interview will go live, but you'll see another ad for that in the show. You'll hear that. And I was curious also if you caught on to things like the little, the music around the news spot, that sort of thing. That's all new. That's me playing around and having some fun with it, and hopefully improving the production value of the show and giving you something to smile over. So, all right. I've yammered on long enough. Let's get into this interview. I talked to Mike about producing his show on the road, his career. There's even some like tips and tricks in there. A little bit about RV life on the road, particularly when it comes to like internet and getting online. So we're going to talk about all that stuff and more in this interview. I hope you enjoy it. So thank you, and stick around afterwards for the industry news. I got some stuff you're definitely going to want to hear. So I'll see you on the other side of this interview with Mike and eventually Jennifer Wendland. See you on the other side. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Now, today I'm talking to somebody that he's a podcaster I listen to quite a bit. In fact, I've come to respect him and his wife, Jennifer, quite a bit for their expertise of being out on the road. I'm talking to Mike Wendland. He's the host of the Road Trek podcast. He's a veteran journalist. This guy's got letters. So, Mike, man, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me.
Well, it's good to be with you. This is always fun. Always fun. It's always fun to be on the other side of the microphone,
I know, isn't it? It gets to the point where it's almost uncomfortable. Like you feel like you should be asking questions.
Yeah, well, I don't have to prep as much,
That's right. That's right. So, Mike, so my listeners, we've talked about RVs a lot on this show. Authors love RVs. This is what I've come to discover. When my wife and I decided we would move into an RV, we did that for a little over a year. And we were traveling. I got so much response from that. So many, emails asking questions. I had Joe and Kate Russo from We're the Russos on the show, had other RV experts on the show. But I would love for you to break down your podcast real quick. Just tell people what that show is about and what you're doing with it.
All right. It's actually called The RV Podcast.
Okay.
Extremely original name.
Did I butcher it?
No, you got to, and we're trying now to figure out how to celebrate our 200th episode, which will be coming out very shortly.
Yeah.
And that means I have never missed a deadline in 200 weeks, including bad internet, hospital stays. I've done it all there. But the podcast, I almost have to go way back to the whole story of how I got into writing and reporting and podcasting and doing videos about the RV lifestyle, because my background is that of a journalist, a writer. I've written 5 books, and most of my career is caught up in big daily newspapers, and I still do a weekly NBC technology report, but I was always on the road.
Yeah.
And most of my work was as an investigative reporter. So it was crime and corruption, and I just got all burned out on that. And then the media changed. I mean, it really did change. Everybody had an agenda.
Mhm.
consultants were telling, news directors and editors, oh, you got to have more of this kind of story. And, oh, your leads have to be under 100 words. And then we went into narrative writing, and it was just ridiculous. And so I got out of it. And I wanted to go back to many of the places that I had visited as a journalist, places that, they would parachute me in. I'd use a beautiful mountain scene for a backdrop for my stand-up.
Right.
Do whatever tragedy of the day was, leave, get on a plane, go to the next story. And so I wanted to just go back and experience this country because it was just a big blur to me.
Right.
And I bought a little RV, and this was almost 7 years ago now. And because I have been a writer my whole life, I had to share that experience, So initially it was just with my kids and some friends and family. And so we started to blog a place called Road Trekking. That was the name of the RV we bought, a road trek. And so I was roadtrekking.com. And so I started that blog, and soon one of the people who make road treks contacted us. They became a sponsor. Because I did a lot of technology stuff, Verizon Wireless became a sponsor, and it just grew and grew. And out of that came the podcast, and then the video channel, and a newsletter. And, all this stuff that we do now to be independent and location independent and have to survive in this world, we have to be able to do all those things. So I have all those different platforms, but the podcast is probably the subject of the most joy because you can spend more time on it. And I get to share this with my wife. We get to travel, and it's awesome. It's just an awesome life. So that's how the podcast came, and now they're all tied in with all these other things, and we're having fun.
I mean, your show is very well produced, high production value. It's got a lot. You've got interviews. You've got stingers for segments. You've got all this stuff built into it. I think it's like a model for podcasts. Honestly, I should probably aspire to reach your level of production value.
Thanks. We tried to design it, back in the old days when you'd have a newspaper and it had different sections, and in television, it became like a television magazine, but all devoted about traveling, technology, photography, videography, interviews with some of the issues that traveling poses today, and all of it geared around that RV lifestyle, which is really a great lifestyle.
Yeah, it is. So my quick backstory, my wife walks into my home office one day in the house we used to own and says, what if we sold the house and bought an RV and lived in it full time? Which shocked me because this is something I had pitched, 6 or 7 years earlier. When we'd first gotten married, it was shot down right away. But I had always wanted to try this. And so, we did it. When I started researching, you guys were one of the first. Of course, your podcast is named perfectly, so I found it right away. But you guys were one of the first resources I found for getting into this. So
wow, that's pretty inspiring because we're just stumbling along. I am not.
That's the way it goes, right?
Yeah. I mean, I have no idea. Most of the time when we set off on the road, we have no idea where we're going, where we're going to end the night.
Sometimes, I love that actually.
Yeah, I do too. The biggest decision is do we turn left or right?
Right.
So that's really exciting to know that because a lot of people are going to this lifestyle. It's just
you guys do. I'm going to steal terminology from you all through this interview, okay? But you guys do serendipitous travel.
I'm going to get T-shirts printed up there. I travel serendipitously.
I'll be your first customer. I will buy that.
That is the way we travel. I think part of it is a rebellion against, being a journalist and always on deadline. Although I kind of am now, but it's my own deadlines that I set. But I mean, we'll set off. We may have an ultimate destination in mind, but we'll kind of set off in that direction, and then we'll see something on the road. Might be a roadside saying, this is the Jell-O capital of the world, as a little town in New York, upstate New York was. Right. So off we turn and we'll go visit that. And so sometimes we will just see something that we think is an interesting story, and we'll stop and tell it. And I think that's the thing I've discovered most is that I think, we've been real blessed in the terms of the audience we've picked up and the responses we get. But I think the underlying reason is people are so hungry for good news. And I don't mean goody two-shoe news or slanting news. I mean, just the interesting places and people that are out there across North America. And that's what we kind of write about.
Yeah, that's one thing that I know for sure about your show, that I can count on your show to show me the more positive side of the U.S. because I'm inundated, like everyone else, with very negative imagery about our country right now. And so you guys present a very hopeful look at, coast to coast, what this country actually looks like to the people living in it. So I appreciate that.
That's a real compliment. That's kind of what we hope to do. I mean, it's just so many fascinating places. And then as a creative type, you get, the other thing I have is every town has a story, and that is so true.
Yeah.
I'm now at the stage, and I'm actually thinking I might try a couple of novels, because almost every place I go, I run into a Christian. For example, we're going out to Montana.
Yeah.
And we took the northern route, US 2, across this time. And we came to a little town called Havre, Havre. And we were just going to spend the night there and then, move on. And we saw this thing, Tour the Havre Underground. It's in Montana. What's that? Well, it turns out at the turn of the last century, this little western town, which was a melting pot of Oriental workers for the railroads who were kind of ostracized, cowboys who were resenting all the money that was coming in from the wealth of the railroads, and some miners. And so this town was a boom town. Well, it burned down in December of that year. And what do you do in the middle of nowhere? And so they built underground. They literally built this underground city and lived under there as they waited for spring and to rebuild the town. And you can tour much of it. They built in skylights in the sidewalk that would light the inside of this place. They ran electricity in there. It was just a fascinating story. So, I mean, you can make about 3 novels out of that story.
Yeah, no joke, man. I'm okay.
There was a saloon in there, a bordello in there, an opium den in there. They had all of that. And so I said, man, this is a great story.
Man, this is why I travel. Every book I have, every book I've written has come from some trip I've taken or, some conversation I had while on the road. So that right there, I have to struggle not to completely steal that idea from you, right?
Every town has one of those stories, Oak Ridge, Tennessee. I'm looking at a big map over me. Oak Ridge, Tennessee is where they developed the atomic bomb. Yeah. They went into this little place, the government did, and they evicted everybody. They paid them, a fair value for the house, but they evicted the whole place. Then they built the city, and they said it was for some government research project, but it was where they developed the atomic bomb. Right. They built this model city, all these houses. I mean, and nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew what these people were really doing. And you can now tour that. I think, wow, there's another story, and across this country, and city after city, there's little stories like that. So I usually try and do a video, and then we do pictures and a blog post on it. But this last trip I went, I've come back with 9 stories now I have to edit and get put together. And we'll take it off in a couple of weeks for North Dakota or North Carolina. So who knows what's on there.
That brings me to the thing that I really wanted to talk to you about, honestly, because for a retired guy, you're the hardest working guy I know.
I'm not retired. I thought I was.
I know. Yeah. I get that impression.
Jennifer added it up the other day, and she said that I am working 60 hours a week. So I said, no, it can't be. But she's right. Every morning I get up, I spend a couple hours handling all the social media stuff and, kicking out the trolls and the negative stuff and the people who try to attack somebody. Everybody who has anything on Facebook, you know what that's like. You got to monitor it. Yeah. And then I have to update them. I have new content on my blog every single day. I made that pact too, that I'd have new contact either by me or somebody that I recruited. So I go over that, and then we start you got to promote all that stuff because there are no press agents, and there's none of that stuff anymore. You got to be your own everything. And then it's time to go gather a story or to travel and edit and video and shoot and interview. And then I come back home and I got to process all that stuff. And she's right. Anyway, it was 60 hours a week. But when you're having fun and when you're enjoying it, I'm just finished one that'll go up in the next day or so about monsters and myths and mysteries up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Oh,
And it was so much fun to do that story. It was just really fun.
yeah.
I couldn't wait. So, but that's the problem when you do something you really like. You're unaware that it is work, and I got to figure out a little balance there. But
Yeah.
I've
I
got a
mean,
wife to help me with that. So
you're still a field reporter going on
yeah,
assignments. You just get to decide the assignments. That's
yeah.
that's the coolest job in the world, man.
Oh, it is. We just did the Custer Battlefield, Little Bighorn
Yeah.
Battlefield.
Yeah.
What a place that is! Talk about history and it's just amazing stories that you can find. And we got out there right when they were also doing a reenactment of that battle. And you want to just stay in these places and you get to immerse yourself in the culture a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We always eat at local restaurants. We never go to a fast food or a chain. And sometimes good, oftentimes not so good, the food, but still you get to experience the community a little bit that way. We do our laundry on the road, and we always try and pick a laundromat in the heart of the little town that we're in. And it's great. It's being able to live everywhere as you travel.
They say, if you want to get to know a community, the best way is to go find the food that they're eating and where they're eating it.
And then where they wash their clothes. You also
and where they wash their clothes.
Little look at the underbelly of the town.
Yeah, it's a whole different perspective.
Yeah.
So how are you? So I mean, I know you've got an arsenal of gadgets. Some of these are provided by like Verizon, that sort of thing. So connectivity, I'm guessing, isn't always such a challenge.
Well, actually, Verizon is one of our sponsors. But even if they were not, I would still use them because in 95% of the country, I'm able to get a internet solid signal that will let me either go live or upload video or upload all my photos and stuff. I use a cell phone booster when the signal's weak in many parts of the country from Wilson. They're not a sponsor. I just use their WeBoost system is probably the better. Mm-hmm. I am testing out a satellite internet system. It's kind of a prototype for something that really isn't going to be ready for a couple of years.
Right.
There's a whole new network of low orbiting satellites that will go online starting next year that will provide amazingly fast internet service through satellite. And they're talking about embedding antennas in the roofs of cars. And this is just going to be an amazing game changer for anybody, particularly the many people who have become, the buzzword now is location independent. Those of us travel and work from the road. So I love to talk tech, but it's pretty simple now. I mean, I just came back, like I said, from one of the more remote parts of Montana up by the Canadian border and had solid connection all the way there, which seems kind of strange when you're in the middle of the wilderness and you have nothing around. And there you are cruising, streaming movies on Netflix.
You're surrounded by bears and forest, and you can order something off of Amazon. That's actually
I did that. I did. I ordered a new lens for that. I ordered this new lens right here. I ordered this while I was watching bears at Glacier National Park. The Glacier, just outside the thing. So it's pretty weird.
So connectivity is, well, I mean, that was a challenge for us when we were on the road. Of course, I do the podcast. I was at one time hosting like 8 different podcasts, and I was appearing on hundreds of them at a time. So I had to have a good internet connection. But that was always the biggest challenge. And then we are Verizon subscribers. They're not a sponsor of this show yet, but we'll keep working on that. But when we came off the road, about a month after we came off the road, Verizon released their unlimited data plan.
That's a nice thing to have.
That would have changed everything.
Yeah.
So other than a solid internet connection, I mean, what are some ways that you're managing workload on the road? Because you're doing quite a bit. You're writing, you're video editing and audio editing. So how are you?
And we're doing it in a pretty small RV. We're in a Class B RV, which is basically the 2 of us and my dog Bo. Who's a Norwegian elk hound. He's 65 pounds. He's fairly good sized boy.
I remember when he was just a surprise puppy your kids
He was. He was named by our listeners. We did a contest and they named him. But he's doing good. He's he keeps us going. But I think, connectivity is critical. I have a separate podcast system in the RV because we're on the road half to 3/4 of the time.
Right.
I've got a nicer thing here in my studio with, different mics, bigger mixer, but basically the same thing, just stripped down with a headset type thing that I use for the mic with Jennifer and I. I record, the interviews on Skype, or we'll do them in person, which we're able to do when we're out on the road. And so the challenge for me is we shoot so much and we gather so much material that if I don't categorize it or put it in files or download the video into a spare hard drive I use for editing, if I don't do that right then, 3 days later, I don't remember where everything is and it becomes a big mess. And so that's probably the biggest workload task, is at the end of a very busy day, having to take all that video, all those photos, find all the notes and keep somehow track of them in different files, story files that I build on each story that we're working on. And like I said, I just came back with 9 of them that I got to do.
Yeah. So you're, now you mentioned, how many books did you say you have?
I've done 5. One, they all are nonfiction. And that's why I've got to try a novel sometime.
It's fun.
First was, called the Arizona Project. It was about the death of a journalist out in Arizona back in 1976, I think it was. And a Ghost wrote a book. Actually, I co-authored, and Ghost wrote a book about a financial guy who started stuff. And then I started an investment service that hundreds of thousands of people belong to. And then some tech books back in the days of CB radio and then the internet. I even published a couple on Amazon. I did a couple of tech books on Amazon.
Oh, okay.
And I think we're going to now turn a bunch of our blog stuff into ebooks.
That's a good idea.
It's good. What amazes me is how many people I read all the time, as certainly I'm sure most of your audience does. But what amazes me is how many people are now bypassing traditional publishers and making really good livings.
Oh yeah, that's me.
Yeah,
that's me and a large chunk of my my listenership.
I get all into these military novels, these espionage stuff, the Brad Thor type works, and I just finished the series. The guy's got like 9 books, and one of the books, just really well written books. He's doing really well on Amazon. No hardcovers anywhere, but he's selling a gazillion books, and you all end up learning how to be your own marketer too, which is what I've been doing with this. So that's big. It's kind of interesting to see that industry unfold, the indie publishing industry, and I'm ecstatic to be a part of it. I mean, I had a traditional contract when I first started. But I've gained so much more by owning that career. So when you talk about novels, are you talking about going that route? You're going to self-publish? Well, I read a lot of novels because it's just good to clear your mind of all that stuff. But any book you read, you learn something, and so I have often thought as I travel. I mean, I just named 2 or 3 stories that that could easily be worked into a novel. So I guess the thing would be to find the extra time, because I'd want to devote several hours a day to it. And I don't think I'd have trouble with the story because there's plenty of stories out there. But I think I want to do a novel. I have not done one. That's one I can say I've only written nonfiction. And it'd be kind of nice not to be quite as bound by sequence and facts.
That's true.
I would. Yeah.
You can play a little loose. I still get people who get irate if I get some details wrong.
Oh yeah, that's what research is. Yep.
Yeah,
I've got that part down. I can research very well. So now I'd like to see if I could put it into a novel.
You ought to be good at it, man. You're a storyteller. You can just
that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be excited to see that. I would love to see, like, if you're going to start turning some of those blog posts into ebooks or something, I think that's a brilliant idea, really. I do that for Draft to Digital, is the publisher that I work with, that, we publish other people's work. And I do that with some of our blog posts, clean them up, add some material, that sort of thing. But
the thing that I like about electronic books in electronic form is that they're current. The the traditional books I did, the hardcover paper. But I wrote it, and it wasn't done for another year before it hit the stands, or I got a box with the books in. I mean, and by that, there's all the stuff I'd like to have added. And with an ebook, you can be up to date, easy to update them. So yeah, I think I've got a list of about a dozen that we're going to probably turn into helpful things, and some guides, travel guides geared towards the people who travel in RVs or tents or campers or whatever they're interested in.
I mean, let me know when you're doing that. I'll help you out with some of that stuff. I mean, I can point you in the right direction on like formatting and things like that. We'll get you a series of books out there.
Yeah, I think so. I just need more things to do. It's just.
Well, that's what I was just thinking. But you're like me.
Waste 10 hours, 8 hours a day sleep. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
I could be doing something.
You're like me, though. You once you master something and you kind of get a process going, and you say, okay, all right, I got some breathing room now. I better fill that time with something productive.
I think that's exactly it, Kevin. I don't know whether that's a good trait or a bad trait. I think maybe my wife would say it's a bad trait.
Yeah, mine does too.
But I'm having fun, and I know you are too. So
yeah. So you've got this podcast has helped, I know, but I mean, you've got a pretty amazing community of RVers. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we just added it up the other day, and, from all of our different platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, where else? YouTube, the blog, newsletter. We have a community of about 550,000. That's a lot. That's a lot of people. Yeah.
That's a fantastic platform.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, they're all what I've noticed. Now I lurk because I have a tendency to sort of take over conversations if I get involved in them. I lurk instead and watch, like on your Facebook page. And your community is very helpful within itself, which is a lot like the indie author community. I mean, your community, if there are questions that need to be answered, people pop in and say, I use this or I've done this.
Yeah. They're really helpful. And I think that's true of everybody in whatever niche or interest you have. If you can build a sustaining community and not use social media to exploit them, in other words, not use them as just a name collector or somebody you can spam. Yeah. If you are part of that community, living that lifestyle, whatever the niche happens to be, you develop a community that almost does your work for you, because they're telling other people about it. They're reading and watching your stuff, but they're also your friends. I mean, we've started out having these gatherings around different parts of the country. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how many people you meet, and completely different. Any other circle, you probably wouldn't even be friends, right. As diverse a group of people as you can be, politically, ethnically, religiously, everything. But they're all bound together by that one niche, that special interest, and all those other differences are somewhere else.
I mean, in my experience, the whole RV community, when you're out there on the road, it was very encouraging to my wife and I, because you get a sense of being sort of alone when you're on the road and you're out in the middle of nowhere, and then you come to one of these, RV parks or a national park or something. You run into other people who are doing the same thing you're doing, and suddenly you've got new friends. And
then you meet them, down the road a couple of months later or a year later, and you pick right up wherever you left off.
Exactly.
And you're staying in touch on social media, and it's become, we use the word community so much now. I'm almost thinking it's family. It's more like a family. That's sort of structured. You got your crazy Uncle Ed over here, and you got, but it's fun. It's a good group.
Yeah, Uncle Road Skunk.
Yeah. Camp Skunk.
Camp Skunk. I'm sorry, man. I messed that up. Speaking of Camp Skunk, so you talk about this in the opening for the show. You have a network of reporters. How did you build that little network? I'm sure you get it, and
any of your listeners do as well. If you have any kind of a blog, you're inundated daily with people saying, hey, I just wrote a story about this. Will you publish it? Or
yes.
I don't even answer those, because those are people who are just looking for a link or to sell something. So we get all those, but early on, I made friends with the camp skunk, who is fascinating story of his own, as everybody is. Everybody's got a story, but he retired early, worked in government for a number of years, and his wife as well. And they became cynical, and he just had enough, and he quit, bought a small camper van, and he and his wife and their cat live full time in it. Full time.
Yeah.
And he's a brilliant guy. He's a good mechanic. He's a philosopher, and he's been very helpful for me as I've tried to figure out mechanical or technical issues, and also to our community. So he came on and he started to contribute to the blog, and then gradually other people did. We had a woman who lost her husband and was a widow, and some of the estimates have as many as 30% of RVers out there are solo female travelers who, and she lost her husband as a widow and was kind of using the RV they were going to do that together, but to go see the country and kind of get over the grieving process and see where life was taking her. She's a writer. I have a single woman who writes a lot for us. And we've got a couple of different people in different stages of life, but I kind of vet them all myself. Nobody gets any money. They do this because they love the lifestyle, and they help out with interesting stories as they come across. So there's kind of like a little network of them now, but all handpicked by me. And so many people have agendas when they approach you to write. So we kind of solicit the ones we know are the real deal. It's the real people living it.
Yeah, I've been tempted to throw my hat in that ring.
Yeah.
When we've been on the road and I've found something, there's immediate impulse for me to record something about it, send it your way. So
yeah,
maybe next time I'll just do it.
Do it. Yeah, just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we haven't talked much about Jennifer, and that's actually kind of a shame because she's.
I could get her down here. I should probably bring her down here and have to yell at her, but
she's such a wonderful person.
Hey, Jennifer! Hey, Jennifer! Way upstairs. I don't know if I can get her down here.
That's fine.
You never want to make your co-star your wife.
Yeah.
Because they're prima donnas. Let me tell you this.
Man.
My dog is in the picture. I don't think you can see
I saw Bo earlier. Yeah.
He's looking for her. He hears me yelling. She doesn't hear me, but she's upstairs. And
Kara and I, as we tend to have philosophical differences, and so I can't imagine it actually might make for great radio and TV. Honestly, if she and I were to co-host something.
Oh, it's fun. I really enjoy doing it because she gives a much better. I don't want to say a softer, but yeah, I guess that is. She gives a little softer reaction to everything. On the podcast, many times I'll start to go off on a tangent, and she'll kind of, go like this or hold her finger up like that. I know what that means. So I stop. But she said she helped me for years. We did a lot of freelance TV, and so she was with me in a lot of that and knows all the production parts of it. And so slowly, I have her doing more and more stuff, and then on camera stuff, and now she doesn't complain most of the time. Some of the time, but not most.
Yeah,
so that's part of the joy is being able to work and travel with your wife too, with your best friend, your most important person.
Yeah, and that's what that's one of the things that makes everything you're doing that much more appealing. Is that because we know my wife and I when we travel, there kind of comes a moment where it seems like it's us against the world, especially if things go wrong.
And they do.
Yeah, which they do. That's just part of the RV lifestyle is things are going to go wrong. And so she's the one I rely on to keep me level-headed and not blowing up and doing something idiotic. But so it's nice to hear, because a lot of times when I encounter people who are talking about something I'm interested in, it's almost like they're lone gunmen, Mavericks running the roads.
It kind of started off that way, and she was very, very supportive. She says, well, if you want to do this, go for it, And I said, well, I think I'd like to do a podcast. She says, well, how much more work is that going to be? And I had to explain to her that I really want to do. I love doing that. And then I slowly hooked her into it. Now she likes it. But it's amazing. We go places, and we were on an escalator somewhere in a shopping center.
Yeah,
We're going
she
down the
is.
stairs talking. Hey, good. You have a command performance. So bring a chair over and you put your earphones on. I'll see if I can bring it. Anyway, and somebody says, I know that voice. You're Jennifer. And even our dog gets recognized, by the way, too.
Right.
So, well, this will be interesting. She has no idea what we're doing. So, and she's going to probably be way shorter than I am because I'm sitting in my office. So you got to somehow scooch up. It's there. There. Can you do that? Can we get in there? Could have you sit on my lap. And that would,
There you go.
There you go, Jennifer. Hello.
Here's Jennifer. You got to put your earphones
She
on.
doesn't have headphones on yet. Okay.
Yeah, she'll get the headphones on. Even that dog is in here.
Oh, are you coming in too?
Put headphones on Bo too. We'll
Yeah,
talk.
Bo. All right, so
Let's see.
so people can tell that we record this live, right?
Oh yeah. The
right.
show, and this is a warts and all show. I don't edit things out. I just
Jennifer, meet Kevin.
Hi, Jennifer.
Kevin was just going on saying it's a shame Jennifer couldn't join us, and that he enjoys your part. So.
I have been doing laundry, getting ready for our next trip. Trying to
Yes.
get ready to go again.
And you guys are going to North Dakota, you said.
No, North Carolina. We just came
North
back
Carolina.
from North Dakota.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, my North.
South
confused.
I can't track. I cannot track. You guys need like a little GPS app that has a little blue dot
I
showing.
got one. I got to figure out how to put it on the webpage. Just found one that'll do that.
Yeah.
We used to do that, and then people would come and try and find us, and then they would get mad if we weren't there. And we
Yeah.
We don't want people mad at us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Took it off, and then I would always say where we are after we had left there. But
That's probably the best plan anyway, right? Because you don't necessarily want a world full of strangers knowing exactly where you're going to be at all times.
yeah, most people are just great. We've had people just show up because they knew where we were.
Yeah,
Really nice
they bring
people.
gifts. It's actually kind of fun.
Oh, yeah, the gifts.
Yeah, they did. They brought us a bottle of wine once. That was nice.
Do you ever get anyone now? I've had people do this, and I really appreciate it, but I'm always a little uncertain about how I should react. For example, one gentleman offered me his cabin in Nova Scotia for a couple of weeks, just because he likes the show, he likes my work, and I really would love to go. I feel a little awkward about it, but I'm glad to know those things are out there. Do you get people who offer things like that?
No, I wish they would.
Yeah, maybe you could send. Yeah, we'd be
They let
happy.
us take our dog.
Yeah, if you didn't mind our dog.
All right.
We don't have things like that. We get a lot of people.
Nobody likes us as much.
They
I don't know if that's true.
they say this, they want us to review products.
Yeah.
And so I'd say, and you probably get those too. And I say, all right,
Yeah.
so I'll review this. But I always say, if I don't like it, I'm going to tell everybody that too. And so I did it. There's a couple of them on the YouTube channel where they were all turkeys. They were all and I all of it. Well, suddenly those requests have stopped. I don't get a lot of them anymore.
And
Yeah.
that's okay.
And that is okay. Yeah.
Honesty isn't always rewarded in this
No.
game.
But no, we don't get any. Well, we get people who offer in the RV equivalent to come stay in our driveway. You can plug in. You can use our showers or laundry. We
Right.
get that all the time.
Yeah.
And we haven't taken anybody up on that offer, but I suppose we could because meeting people is fun. You're always kind of on when you meet somebody, and you at the end of the day, you kind of like, she would like to tell me how I could do things better.
No, you're downloading. You're doing
you want to be
videos.
yourselves, and we try to be
you're
ourselves
working.
all the time, but we're a little more polite when we're around other people, or I am anyway. You're always polite. Well, I try to be.
Well, you've got things. You're on deadline. You have to get things done, and people don't understand that because you're
Yeah.
retired.
They think I'm retired.
You're supposedly retired.
We're just tired.
Just tired. Yeah. Basically, retired means you're tired all over again.
Yeah. I think that's it.
But we're having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it shows. I recently blasted through to catch up on past episodes because I hadn't listened in a while, and it's funny because I forgot to set my the podcast app to play it in order, and it was playing them in reverse. So I actually heard your whole Texas trip from end to beginning. And
I'm the person who did that this week. Somebody else did that.
Yeah.
Emily. I had elbow surgery, and they said they were listening in reverse, and they said, "Oh, you're not going to feel that way in 2 weeks. Easier
Right.
than surgery." So yeah, that's
So you, yeah, exactly. I've actually caught you on a couple of those kind of things. Like, oh, this will be a breeze. I ought to be in and out of there on this surgery. And
yeah, didn't happen.
I'm really upset that I didn't catch you guys when you were here in Texas. Now I'm in the Houston area. I'm in Sugar Land, Texas, which has a couple of things you guys might be interested in checking out someday. But I missed you. I could have been in Waco and caught up with you there because we were kind of in that area around the same time. So
Yeah,
we want to go back.
Yeah. There's so much I'm telling you, my wife and I finally just gave up and decided we got to travel someplace other than Texas because we could spend every moment of travel in Texas because there's just so much to check out here.
We keep talking about that different states. And your idea of just one year, just pick a state for
pick a state and have people say where we should visit in their state. Just concentrate on a state.
Yeah,
we just started doing a live report every Sunday night on the YouTube channel. Wherever we happen to be, we just go live. And my goodness, it's turning into an hour-long show now with people asking questions. But the idea is that we would maybe say, okay, we're going to spend the next month in Alabama, and you tell us where to go, and then we could do our stories.
And then we could meet people.
And meet people, once or twice a week. So
have dinner, have a picnic, be fun.
Yeah. Your options expand quite a bit when you get to spend a little more time there. And you guys are serendipitous travelers anyway, so you could just start at one corner of the state and work your way to the other corner.
Yeah, that's really like Colorado. We did a circle tour one year up there, and that was fun.
Yeah. I would much rather have done that. So our RV is a Class A. It's a 38-foot monstrosity, and we'll probably buy a Class B at some point. But we did our first time we got it. We decided we're going to go on a big tour. We went up through Texas, up into Kansas, came back around through Colorado. And when we hit the ravines, like we have this gas-powered RV, a little underpowered for some of those ravines.
A little train that could.
Yeah. I thought I was going to have to get out and push at one point. But yeah, so I think we would enjoy the van much better. So you guys, the van, and we briefly hit on this. For my listeners who don't know, a Class B, in your case, the Class B is one of the conversion vans, a van that's been converted into a small RV.
It's called a camper van.
Van.
What I have to say, which I could not believe, and I think other people can't believe, that our Class B pulled a travel trailer.
Oh, okay.
Up and down the Rockies, actually, yeah.
Oh.
It was. I was impressed.
Was that for like guest bedrooms or?
Yeah, it was. It was.
With our daughter and her family, they stayed in that, and we pulled it. And then we had another son who followed us in a borrowed motorhome behind that. So we did like a little family caravan.
Caravan, that's cool.
So we pulled that thing up and down the Rockies.
I wouldn't have believed that it could happen, but it did.
Yeah,
you can pull 5,000 pounds?
I think it's 7,000.
Okay.
It's a Mercedes Sprinter chassis.
Right.
And Road Trek does the conversion on it, and it's about ours is almost 24 feet, just a shy under 10 feet high, 20. But it's a van, and but it has.
Which one did we have though? That was the E-Trek.
That was the same one, except I think it was a little shorter. It was a regular size, but it was 23 feet. But tell kind of what we have in our RV.
Well, we can make it into a king size bed or leave it twin beds. We have a full bathroom, shower. You just whip a curtain around the little space that's for the bathroom, a commode, the sink,
kitchen, galley.
We have
microwave,
a convection oven,
big refrigerator, not as big as home, but close to, and
all the comforts of home.
Well, just you're very close together all the time.
And I was going to ask about that. Like, how do you guys manage? Do you on the air, you guys don't seem like you would have a whole lot of conflicts, but I'm sure something comes up when you're in such close quarters. Like, how do you manage personal relationships in that little bit of space?
I never thought it was a problem until one day, Jennifer was doing something and I kind of got in her way, and she said,
"I need some space with you now."
So I realized, okay, that we need a system. And
so he really liked that. He's told everybody that'll listen that I said, "I need some space with you not in it."
Well, that's where you need that camper behind the van. So the old doghouse that you're pulling along with.
One of our other little slogans is small house, big yard. So he just sends me out to the yard.
Mike's sister, I don't know if you've already said this, Mike's sister and husband owned 200 acres in northern Michigan. And we took our 2 granddaughters and the dog up there camping. And the Class B, there really wasn't enough room for four people and a dog to sleep inside it. So the girls got the inside, the 2 granddaughters and me, and the boys, Mike and our dog, got a tent outside.
The dog was delighted to sleep with the outside in the tent. So, but yeah, it's small. There's not a lot of room. You need to, you need to empty the tanks every 4 or 5 days, and
How about the pop-up?
Oh, there's a new one out. Yeah,
there's a Class B with a pop-up.
Yeah, there's a new one that Roadtrek makes. It's got
little steps.
It's a Heimer Loft, I think it's called Heimer Loft. It'll sleep 6 in a camper, but
I've been looking at something like that. I was kind of hoping VW would bring the California.
That's the idea of the loft, kind of.
Yeah,
I think.
Same
and I know they're developing a Jeep that will do some of that as well.
Really?
Yeah. So for those people who are 4-wheel drive nuts, that'd be pretty fun.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool. I have to admit, I'm actually I'm gonna do a little camper conversion on I have a Toyota Tacoma, and I was gonna do a little mod. I'm obsessed with building these things now. Like I tinker with ours so much, and I've done so many things with our RV and added some things and subtracted some things. Now I fancy myself an RV builder at this point. So I was going to try it.
Good for you. And you get it all worked out. Let me know. I got a couple of projects.
I do. I will say this, Mike. I am definitely more handy than you are.
I think that was my one reluctance thing to do it, because I kept saying, I can push buttons, but I don't know how to fix these things. And I think that's one of the reasons Roadtrek has sponsored us, is because if I can operate it, anybody can.
Oh, there you go. There you go. A selling point. All right. Well, look, I promised you we'd keep this under 45 minutes. We're coming up against time. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up. But I'm so glad, Jennifer, that you were able to pop in. I didn't want to tell Mike, but I was bitterly disappointed when you weren't sitting.
Well, I'm glad that you wanted me to join.
So why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and the show and other things related to road trekking online?
You can find the podcast. If you go to rvlifestyle.com, that will get you to almost everything. It'll take you to the blog, and from the blog, there's links to everything that we have there. If you just want to skip that and go to the YouTube channel, it's rvlifestylechannel.com, rvlifestylechannel.com, or rvlifestyle.com. Either of those will find us. And
got some pretty decent domain names sewed up, man.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good name, especially since this is becoming, such a growth industry now, the whole RV idea.
Yeah. To the point where some of us who were early adopters are kind of scratching our heads wondering where we can go, because we're running out of places to go.
Long tail name,
Exactly.
RV travel across the country for those who can't find a better name.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Now, everyone out there listening and watching, you stick around. You're probably hearing the groovy theme music right now. You may dance in place at will. Mike and I are going to hang out for a few minutes after this, but you should stick around to hear industry news, some other cool stuff you're going to want to know about. Mike and Jennifer, thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thanks.
Well, thank you.
Nice to be here, Kevin.
All right, everybody. We'll see you all on the other side.
Hear your book the way it was meant to be heard. With a fully custom soundtrack based on your material. An album of music that perfectly fits your characters, your settings. Hear your book today. SonataInscribe.com.
Hey, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Mike and Jennifer Wendland. RV stuff is very fascinating to me. The whole idea of being able to carry what you need with you, get on the road, be completely mobile, completely off grid if you want. That's all fascinating to me. you really should check out, if you have any interest at all in getting an RV, traveling and writing, traveling and producing a podcast, whatever it is you're into, you really should check out the Road Trekking RV Lifestyle podcast. It's one of the best out there. It's certainly the best produced, and Mike and Jennifer are wonderful people. I love hearing everything they have to say. So make sure you hop in, check that out. You can find links to the show in the show notes of this episode. On YouTube, you just look down below, and otherwise you go to wordslingerpodcast.com. You'll find all kinds of stuff. So check that out. Now, let's get into the industry news. There's some interesting stuff happening. Cue the industry news music. So, first up, U.S. Supreme Court tax ruling means authors have to collect sales tax on direct sales. This is coming from our good friend Nate Hofflander at the Digital Reader. This story is interesting. And I said Hofflander, I meant Hoffelder. I'm sorry, Nate. Forgive me. But this story is interesting because I'm not entirely sure if this is really accurate. But I'm going to assume that it is, because this comes on the heels of a U.S. Supreme Court ruling, South Dakota versus Wayfair. If you don't know Wayfair offers like discounted furniture sales and that sort of thing. And the gist of the case was South Dakota essentially was trying. Well, let's just say this: the Supreme Court overturned South Dakota's ruling, but is saying that every business should collect sales tax for any sales made within a given state, regardless of whether they have a presence in that state. So in the past, if a business did not have a warehouse or a distribution center or an office in, say, Wyoming, then they did not have to collect Wyoming state sales tax when they made a sale to someone who lived there. Honestly, I think that's kind of fair, but the Supreme Court does not agree. Now, this is one of the last rulings that Judge Kennedy made. Anthony Kennedy, of course, Justice Kennedy left the Supreme Court, and that's caused all kinds of chaos and controversy we won't get into. But in one of his final decisions before leaving, he decided to overturn the South Dakota State Supreme Court's ruling that said that you did not have to collect sales tax if you were not located in the state. I think, and this comes off of a case, Quillcore versus North Dakota, where it was basically established that unless you had a physical presence in a state, you did not have to collect sales tax from that state, or on behalf of that state. Now, where this impacts indie authors, if you sell direct, let's say you have a website where you're selling copies of your book, either print copies, audiobooks, or ebooks, it doesn't matter. You sell merchandise, you sell T-shirts, you sell autographs, whatever it is you're selling. Now, according to the Supreme Court, you must collect sales tax from the state in which that customer lives. Now think about that, because there's 50 states, arguably 51 if you want to throw Puerto Rico in there. And at any given time, you could have someone purchase one of your ebooks from you directly from any one of those states. You could have hundreds of people across all 50 states purchase ebooks or other products from you directly, and you would be responsible for making sure you're collecting sales tax and then making sure the states get that sales tax for every purchase. So that complicates life quite a bit. And in an era where we were just getting tools and resources that would make it much simpler and easier for us to do direct sales, now we have to concern ourselves with this. I don't think this is right, personally. If I reside in Texas and I charge a state sales tax for Texas, that makes sense to me. If my business is in Texas and you buy from me, whether it's on the internet or whether it's in person, I should pay taxes on the state in which I reside. But if I have to pay taxes for every little state plus Texas, because Texas is going to want their cut too. So if I have to pay taxes to every little state, it starts eating into my bottom line, which is a problem all on its own. But it also complicates my business to a point where it's almost not worth it. to try to do direct sales. What it does is unfairly put small businesses, such as authors, at a disadvantage, and gives larger businesses, such as Amazon or anyone who can aggregate those sales on your behalf, a bigger advantage. So I don't believe this is a fair judgment. I think Kennedy was phoning it in before he left. I think he knew he was on his way out, and this was one of those things he didn't care about. That's what I think. Let me know what you think. I know that's a little pessimistic. I can be a little pessimistic at times, but that's the way it goes. Now, if you want to read that story and more, you can do that. Go over to bit.ly/153-taxes, and that'll take you to that story on Digital Reader. On thedigitalreader.com. So, next up, we got iBooks gets a redesign and new Apple Books branding in iOS 12. This is something we've known about for a while. We've known this is going to happen. Apple is rebranding the iBooks brand to simply Apple Books. And along with that rebranding come a few new features, particularly, and the one that this article mentions is the Reading Now section, where when you open the app, it'll automatically open to the last book you were reading and the last page you were reading. Now, this isn't new if you're a Kindle reader. This is something that Kindle has done in their app all along. Well, not all along. Maybe not all along. I don't know that for sure. But they've done it for quite a while, and you're used to it. I'm used to it. So it's good to see a feature like that come to Apple Books. More intriguing to me is that Apple it seems to be going through this product by product rebrand, and I'm glad to see that Apple Books is getting some attention. In the past, it's been something of the unwanted redheaded stepchild. I don't know, is that offensive to people? Redheaded stepchild? It's just a saying I've had in my head my whole life. Let's just say the unwanted stepchild, the abused Cinderella-like stepchild. And, Apple iBooks at the time, it didn't get that much attention. I know there's been some shakeup within the organization. A lot of the people that we knew who were long-standing members of the iBooks team have moved on to other entities and other parts of the publishing industry. So there's definitely been some restructuring, redesign, reorganization in Apple when it comes to this brand, this product. I'll be anxious to see how this turns out. I mean, taking a look at screenshots for the new app, it looks much more attractive to me. It's much more in tune with what they've done to the Apple, the iOS App Store, with like little articles and things that pop up, related to that industry. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen for indie authors in this, but I get little hints and whispers that this could lead to some good stuff for the indies. There's definitely more interest in expanding this part of the Apple brand. So we'll see what happens. So as of iOS 12, we'll start seeing iBooks shift over to Apple Books. And that draft to digital, of course, that means a little bit of retooling for what we do, but mostly messaging. But yeah, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be good. So check that story out. Hop on over to bit.ly/153-Apple, and you'll find that story in full. Next up, Harlan Ellison, a legend in the science fiction and writing community, has died. This was a controversial figure. He died at the age of 84, and died in his sleep, which, if you're going to go, that's not a bad way to go. But Ellison is born in 1934 in Cleveland, Ohio, and he started publishing stories. His first short stories were published starting in 1949, so he didn't wait too long. He got started right away. Now, this guy's written for some of the most well-known television shows out there. He wrote for The Outer Limits, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and of course Star Trek. How could you forget Star Trek? He also wrote he served as a consultant rather for shows like The Twilight Zone and Babylon 5. And he worked briefly at Walt Disney Studios until Roy Disney overheard him joking about making a porn with some of the film's characters. So he got fired. But anyway, Now, Harlan was kind of a controversial figure in the sci-fi community as well. I mean, he had an antagonistic relationship with a lot of other sci-fi writers. He tended to be a little Sue-happy. He got real Sue-happy over people he thought were stealing his ideas. For example, there was a whole lawsuit with James Cameron over the Terminator, and Harlan Ellison claimed that was stolen from one of his ideas. They eventually settled out of court over that, I don't know enough about that story, but now I want to find out more. Because I remember hearing something about that, not really caring at the time. But Harlan was he was somewhat controversial and maybe a little caustic, and definitely played by his own tune. But he was a great. He was a legend, and it is sad that he has passed on. But he left behind a pretty brilliant body of work, and I'm glad for that. I've read quite a bit of his work. Over the years. I remember in high school reading some short stories by Harlan Ellison that I don't think I was supposed to be reading, frankly. But anyway, go check that stuff out. Some interesting stuff, and very at times intellectual and nuanced. So if you haven't read anything by him, you might check it out and you'll enjoy it. You can find that story, of course, at bit.ly/153-Harlan. Go check that out. Check out some of his work in memory of Harlan Ellison. And that is it for the Wordslinger industry news. And I'm glad you could tune in and join us for that. We are at the end of the program. I hope you are enjoying the Wordslinger podcast. Depending on where you're consuming this material, if you're looking at me right now on YouTube, hello. And if you're listening on the podcast, as always, I'm thrilled you're here. Do me a little favor. Go out and tell, let's just say, 3 of your friends about the Wordslinger podcast. I'm trying to kind of grow that audience a little more, particularly on YouTube, where I don't have a lot of subscriptions yet. Because it's new. I only started doing video in January. I think a lot of people haven't caught on this there yet. So help me spread that around a little. And I really appreciate that. If you have industry news or little tidbits you'd like to fling my way, hop on over to wordslingerpodcast.com, where you can send me an email if you got a question. If you got a question for me or for one of the guests, if you have a question about writing and publishing or about anything else, send it to me at wordslingerpodcast.com. Just pop on over there, click on the contact button, and let fly. You can also follow us on Twitter. We're at WordslingerPod on Twitter. You can look up Wordslinger Podcast on Facebook. Pretty much anywhere, any social media outlet. I should be floating around. You can follow the show. You can follow me, Kevin Tomlinson. Just type Kevin Tomlinson into any social media search tool, and you are likely to find me, honestly. So thanks for that. Thanks for sticking around. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you so much for tuning in, being a part of my life, part of my show. These things are, they're important to me, and I know they're important to some of you. So I appreciate you taking the time to just, spend an hour or so with me. All right. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you all next time. Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Wordslinger Podcast. Now, you can support this show by visiting wordslingerpodcast.com. That's where you're going to find back episodes, books by me, and links to anything and everything Wordslinger. And be sure to subscribe to this show on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and anywhere else fine podcasts are sold. I'm Kevin Tomlinson. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Wordslinger.